I just really like hearing myself up close in my ears. I like my ears to sweat, which is...
Well, I was thinking also, though, I've noticed it seems like I've heard you refer to your voice and the way it sounds any given day.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it changes day to day. I've had this wonderful thing for the past month and a half now of just congestion and congestion and congestion everywhere. I have congestion in my toes. I didn't think that was possible. I was talking to my co-writer earlier, and he said his daughters had the same thing.
How's it manifesting itself?
I have to cut my toenails frequently to keep them in shape. You know,
Either that ruin your socks.
It's just I used to get rid of stuff easy. You know, I don't smoke. I don't drink. I work out.
You drinking water?
I drink plenty of water.
A lot of water?
A lot of water. I'm doing all the things, and I'm getting none of the results. Maybe I should just go back to the old ways of being ignorant and doing stupid stuff. I can't do that.
No.
You know? I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe it's the diet. Maybe you're eating...
I eat fish.
You eat dairy?
Dairy will do it too.
I have a very little. I don't eat a lot of cheese. I have like a teaspoon of half and half in my coffee in the morning. I feel like...
Half and half, that's just fake. That's not even dairy.
Oh, it's half cream and half...
that's right. It's
half
that's
milk,
why
half
they call
cream.
it half and half.
Oh, yeah.
I saw, when I was on the road at one point, I saw one that said, it was like a non-dairy whatever.
Yeah. Soy-based.
Well, but it was crazy when I pulled the thing out to get the coffee. I wasn't going to get the stuff, but I looked at it a little more closely because it was a Canadian thing, and then it said contains dairy.
Yeah, really.
It was a non-dairy creamer, but it said contains dairy on it.
Take that, Canada.
That's fake cows, soy cow. I don't dig on that stuff much. Tell you what, Canada does have good honey. We played up in Toronto. We played in Toronto this summer, and we had a little catering, the little green room, and they had some honey in there that was delightful. You cannot get that honey shipped down here for some reason, and it's very depressing. Yeah.
Interesting.
This is my struggles.
Maybe they, all the maple up there, maybe it makes the honey have a mapley flavor to it.
Maybe. Canadians are holding back on us.
Yeah.
We give them freedom. Big Kevlar vest of America down here, and they won't give us honey. It's ridiculous. Welcome to Twangtown.
Are you serious that they won't ship honey down here?
According to him?
Yeah. So, this one particular brand that I like.
Well, what's the brand? Let's shout it out and get it down here.
Star Honey.
Star Honey.
Star Honey.
I've also noticed that you've had a fixation, and it may be driven somewhat by this. You've had a fixation here on the traffic and the weather.
Yes.
Both of those things. Now, the weather could be contributing to your congestion.
It could be, Jim.
Especially your toes oozing.
My oozing toes. That's my new band name. That's our band name. I harp on traffic because it needs to be harped on. It's ridiculous, uncalled for, and mean-spirited. I don't like it. I moved here a long time ago when the traffic was mild and the weather was still nice.
But I think the conclusion that you came to about it's not really good to be flipping the bird at people who cut you off is probably still a wise thing.
No, it's not, and it my Christian values and my soul hurts when I do that. I don't do it anymore. It was for fodder the other day. I really didn't flip them off. I thought about it, which is just as bad.
Oh,
as the Big Ten tell us.
You didn't really pull the trigger?
You break one, you break them all.
Yeah.
I didn't. I lied to Danielle Breezy. I did.
Well,
lying to Breezy ain't easy.
You're just trying to impress her. I get it.
Hey, welcome to Twangtown, y'all. This is David Tolliver, and over there is
Colt Mirsky.
Tall Brewski.
Today we have music legend icon Jim Ed Norman.
It is legend.
I mean, this guy's been doing it for a long time, and he's been doing it really good.
Hey, just that long time stuff, that cannot be a thing.
No.
I'll just right up front, my initials Jen for Jim Ed Norman. Genesis is actually spelled Jen. It's like you gave Billy Montana. So much crap for the old jokes I'm going to have you. It's just like, go ahead. I'm
Well, I think
No, you're not as old as Billy.
no, I
though.
think secretly Billy's definitely way older than you are.
You look great.
secretly.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think so.
Well, he won't ever really tell us his real birthday. You know?
Yeah. He was born when the winter was cold, he says. I don't know. Yeah, I got him a present. I guess we got him a present. It's downstairs at the front desk. His nickname is Billy Hard Candies, Montana now. You know that jar that every
Yeah, sure.
that has the hard candies. You can't find them anywhere.
Right, he's eating all of them?
Found them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he's getting for Christmas.
He got
just
to
found
the
out.
age he had to have the candy now. So
Yeah.
Billy, come get your candies.
Understood.
Yeah, welcome, man.
Well,
Thanks for coming in and being here with us.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
If you needed another son or a son, I will be happy to be that.
On what basis?
Whatever. I mean, laundry. I can do your laundry. Yeah.
I think he likes you, is what he's trying to say.
Yeah.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Well, I was reading something about money and children. I think it might have grown out of your dad joke thing or something, somewhere along there, the thing, and it was money, and it was the role that money plays in keeping your children close.
Yeah.
Kids are expensive.
Oh man,
My wife and I were just talking the other day. It's like we haven't bought like really like good new clothes for ourselves in like a really long time because, especially from babies up till like elementary school, kids go through clothes so fast and they're so expensive. I mean, they're just as expensive as adult clothes and they're half the material. So it's just
there should be like a size that there's one size and they have drawstrings and you as the kid gets older, you let it out.
Yeah.
That'd be a great idea. I was thinking with your kids in particular. I mean, you're tall. And so that you would go through a lot of clothes quickly.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Well, I think you'll make it. I think it'll be
We'll survive.
yeah.
We'll see this through. Talk to me again in 20 years and I'm sure I'll be over all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll be, if I were you, I'd just start thinking about, if you're going to complain about something, complain about college.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll complain about that already.
Yeah.
My wife's telling me to start 529 accounts for the girls and yeah, so working on that, trying to figure out how to do
But
all
it's
that.
a good thing.
Because, like my wife and I, we grew up without money. So when we went to college, we got the grants and the scholarships and blah, 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 blah. It didn't pay for all of our schools, but for a good chunk of it. We're at that point where we're not rich, but we make just enough money where our kids will probably never get any subsidies
You're
from
at
the government.
screwed income.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we're paying full price for everything, even though,
Yeah.
we're not wealthy.
You should just
by
lie
any
on your
means.
taxes. Just lie on your taxes. You'll be
Yeah.
fine. They don't
Yeah.
get mad about that anymore. It's
Yeah.
fine. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we'll just
it
need
can
some good
work.
athletes or something.
It can be a fistful of dollars, for sure.
So born in Florida,
Born in Florida.
Fort Myers, was it?
Fort Myers. It was Fort Myers. Was born there and then left quickly for Iowa
Iowa.
and spent my first 4 years in Iowa.
Well, how old were you when you went to Iowa? How quickly did you get out of Florida?
I would have been one, or what are you between?
Okay.
0
So
and
you were
1?
really determined to get out of Florida. I
You're
like
those
it.
months.
Yeah.
The months.
Those months. I always said that I spent the ages of 1 through 4 in Iowa. So
Gotcha.
But it was my father was a minister, and he was not ordained yet and needed to go to seminary, and so he went to a seminary connected with Northwestern there in Chicago area in Evanston, and was assigned during that period 3 rural churches in Iowa. And so he would go off to college, to school we would take him to the train station typically Monday, and he'd get on a train and go in, and then he'd come back on Friday. he'd prepare, and he would do an early service at one church, the next morning service, and a night service at the other church. And so my first 4 years were spent thinking that, that you're raised by your mom, and that it's cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you haven't been to Iowa in winter, it's an experience.
Yeah, I went through there recently, and it was cold.
It's still cold.
It's still cold.
It didn't get warmer.
It didn't get warmer.
So your dad, he got to go to Chicago during the week, and you guys got to be in the cornfields.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened, I think.
Yeah, well, it happens.
It's okay. These things happen, and you get over it. Well, then we went back to Florida. So I really do say and think of myself, and I say I'm from Florida, and people always say, well, where? And I have to say all over, because my dad was connected to denomination Methodist, and in Methodist they provide the minister a house in which to live, but they feel comfortable assigning you to new areas. And so we would, my dad would learn at something called annual conference, the assignment that he was getting and where we were going. And
he like would being in the military, basically.
Like military. He'd come home, and in 2 weeks' time, we packed, grabbed everything we had, which was very little. Thank goodness.
Right. If you're moving that much.
And we moved to a new place, and the shop was set up in the new place, and the new congregation and the new church, new situation, and life was like that. They move typically ministers more in the early stages of their, I think, sizing them up, quite frankly.
Yeah.
What are they capable of handling and doing and organizing, and who are they as people as well as ministers? And
was that music at all in your life at that point?
Well, being around the church.
Same for me. I grew up in the church, and Mom played piano, so I would assume that would. Well,
my dad. It was kind of funny. My dad was a trumpet player. My mom played a little piano, but my dad was a trumpet player, and because he would preach all day, and then at night, he got where at times during the night service, he'd start to feel the fact that he'd been preaching all day long, kind of thing, and so he came up with this idea, and I later on I was really impressed with his abilities. He decided, because he would also have to lead the singing in these small churches. So he decided that what he would do is he would start leading the singing by playing the melody line out of the hymnal on his trumpet.
Wow.
Now, the trumpet is a B-flat instrument.
Yeah.
And so I learned, like I say, later, that he would sight read when the hymns, read that top line of the four parts, playing it, and just transpose it there on the spot. So
wow.
he was musical and capable, but trumpet became then my first instrument. But I was around music, yes. I was exposed to music through the church and being in that environment.
I can honestly say I've never heard a trumpet in church before. In the Bible, it's biblical.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever heard one in church either.
His horn.
Yeah.
However, growing up as a Baptist, if it wasn't black and white keys, we didn't have it in the church.
Yeah.
But that's very interesting.
Well, I think it would be, with Joshua, and people were scared of him, I think, blowing walls down.
I don't know. It helped the building fund, brother. You bring it back up. So, what you lived in Iowa, and you ended up going to
University of North Texas.
University of North Texas.
It is now called University of North Texas. When I went there, it was called North Texas State University. Yeah, I went there because I had.
How did you decide on that place?
Yeah. Well, in my progression in Florida had taken me in my travels and everything that I got to do there. I ended up out of high school going to a junior college called Brevard Junior College. It's in an area called Cocoa, Cocoa Beach.
Cocoa
area.
Beach?
Yeah.
Space Station or Space Center.
I worked at Kennedy Space Center
Really?
on Apollo 11. Yeah.
Wow.
And we went to the moon.
Well, that's badass.
Well, that's
You just don't breeze by that. You tell us that.
no,
How cool was that?
I forgot about that. You've told me that before, and I forgot. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
I would wear a name
No,
tag.
I
around.
love that.
I would have a thing that said I worked on Apollo 11 right on the shirt.
I have a plaque, that says if it wasn't for me, we wouldn't have made it to the moon.
Holy cow! I mean, even cooler now.
No old jokes.
No, none. No.
But I was going to that junior college, and there, actually back in high school, I had gone to the band director and said, "Well, why could we start a jazz band, something a little different, and whatever?" And he said, "Well, we couldn't do one because we don't have a bass player." And I said, "Well, if you buy one, I'll learn how to play it, and I'll be the bass player." So they bought an upright bass, and I became the bass player for the jazz band.
Hot diggity dog. I love it.
And so I then...
There's no quitting, Jim.
I then went and said, "Hey, I know you have this thing. It's a bit of a misnomer. You have this thing called a free period that you have, and I noticed that you're quite busy all the time." And he said, "Yeah, I'm grading papers and that kind of thing." And I said, "Hey, listen, there's this thing I've heard about because I'm headed towards, in my mind, doing something with music and thinking school. I'm going to go to school of some sort, and I'm going to study music." And there's this thing called music theory that seems to hang people up. They seem to struggle with it. How would you feel about teaching me music theory during your free period here? Because I have one also. I've got this period that you would have each day where you would do study hall or something like that. And you'd say, "Well, I tell you, if you can talk the administration into doing something like that." Because I said, "I'm down at the end, and I've got all the things I need to graduate, except these electives, you're calling them." And I said, "So I could learn this and get a leg up." I was a junior in high school. And so he said, "Well, go talk to the administration and see what they said." So I did. I went and talked to the guy there, and he said, "Well, if you can get Mr. Corson, who was the band director, if you can get him to agree to it, we'll do it." They didn't realize I'd already talked to him.
Yeah.
They both thought each other was going to say no.
Mom talked to dad, dad talked to mom. Yeah,
Go ask your mom. Go ask your father.
And so I ended up being the first, and for that first year, the only student in the theory class at Titusville High School there. And so the next year, the teacher just handed me some books and said, "Here, I've taught you everything I know. You start reading these books." But the other students had seen what was going on. They say, "Well, what's Jim doing?" And so the next year, the class, I think, had like 8 people in it.
Wow.
But I was over in the corner just reading and doing my own thing. But so I went to this junior college and was still, at this point, I'd gone through a bunch of different instruments. Trumpet, I then moved to euphonium, and now I'm playing trombone.
A euphonium?
Yeah, I'd never heard of euphonium either.
Euphonium. You would recognize them in a marching band. You hold them they look like baby tubas.
Baby tuba.
Baby tuba.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it does look like a baby tuba.
It does.
Yeah. And so
Yeah,
it
it's
plays
like a French horn tuba looking thing.
It plays typically what you call the cello part
Oh.
in an orchestra. You're in a band, but it's playing that part that would be thought of as the cello part, where the tuba plays the bass part, and the trumpets play the violin parts.
Yeah.
And so I had moved from euphonium to trombone because I wanted to study trombone. I wanted to learn how a trombone worked. And so I'd moved to trombone. And the whole time as I go then to this junior college, I'm now playing trombone in the dance band, the big band. We have a reasonably good band. And some of the guys in there start talking about that are really much better players. Since I've moved from instrument to instrument, I'm the proverbial, the master of none, jack of all trades.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
But I'm learning how each one of these instruments works. I know their ranges and what they can do. I put all of this knowledge to use as an arranger, because now I know how these instruments work and how they work together. But some guys there at the school who were really accomplished on their instruments were talking about going to this school in Texas that was a legendary big band school specifically. That the program that they had there really focused on this. And so I kind of just followed along the next year. I followed them. Some guys preceded me, and I followed along the next year to North Texas State University.
Wow.
The Mean Green.
That's it.
They were also called the Eagles.
Yeah. Yep.
So
it's good that the fortuitousness of that whole thing led you to there, because it changed your life, did it not?
It changed my life.
You met some people.
I met one person in particular. I was
What a segue.
I was walking down. I was living in an apartment and was walking down the sidewalk connected to the apartment, and it was a beautiful fall day. And North Texas is in Denton, just north of Fort Worth, northwest of Fort Worth. And people have their doors open, having a brewski.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And cooking on their hibachi grills and that kind of stuff. But I walked past one place and somebody's blaring a loud rock and roll record. I come to find out that it's a Led Zeppelin record, only because he tells the story as I'm playing this loud Led Zeppelin record, and this guy walks in and sticks out his hand and says, "Hi, I'm Jim Ed Norman, and you ought to listen to this." And he hands me a Dillard's record. He introduces himself, and he's Don Henley.
Don Henley.
Yeah.
Just Don Henley.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, man, I grew up with two older sisters, 15 and 12 years older than me. So when I was smaller, I had every kind of musical influence whatsoever. I mean, Mom and Dad, we would, in the Winnebago, would have 8 tracks of, Johnny Cash and Haggard, and, but the sisters would listen to Speedwagon and Eagles. Mm-hmm. My one sister, Renee, is a huge Eagles fan. And she showed me the Eagles, their harmonies, how they fit together, which is the first time that I really found a love of, hearing the voices blend together.
Yeah.
And good Lord have mercy.
Boy, did their voices blend too. Just amazing.
It was unreal. So you meet this guy.
Yeah, I meet this guy, and he has a band already.
Yeah.
And the Ford Econoline van, light blue, pulls up in front of his apartment. He has his drum set in there, and they load the drums into the van, and I'm watch this, and they drive away. I meet the guys that are in the band.
Yeah.
They drive away, and the next week, I think they come back, to pick him up on a Thursday or a Friday. They're going to go play gigs in Texas somewhere, and but now there's some amps and various things in Don's apartment that have been stored there. So I go in and start being a roadie. I help. I load that van up, and get to know the guys a little more. And Don and I are hanging out more. We're listening to music together. I remember we drive in a snowstorm to Fort Worth to hear the Dillards at a club. I think we were one of 6 people in there.
Oh, nice.
And but the relationship grows. I've gone back to work at Kennedy Space Center, and I had his phone number, and I ended up calling and checking in. And what I've come to find out is the band had already started their creative process, writing songs, and had gotten even a recording deal to do a single. And they had done a single. They had come back to Texas to celebrate. That would be the best way to refer to it, I think, to celebrate the success of the single and everything that was going on. And in one of those unfortunate kind of moments or something, one of the members of the band lost his life on a motorcycle.
Man, that's tragic.
Amidst that celebration.
Wow.
And Don calls and says, how would you like to be in a band again? I'd played in bands in Florida. Matter of fact, the first professional gig I ever did, I was filling in for the rhythm guitar player in a band who had gotten the flu and couldn't do it. And we opened for Conway Twitty.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah. So Don said, you know, you like the same music that we like, and you're a keyboard player, you're a guitar player, all that.
Jack
kind
of all
stuff.
trades
Jack
again.
of all trades, yeah. And so I go up for essentially what was a cultural and social audition more than it was a musical one. You know,
Seeing if you fit in the group, and
That's exactly
good
right.
which is a huge part of it. You know, as well as I do on the road. The hang is a big part of it because you spend a lot of downtime just sitting around. If you don't like the person, it's going to translate on stage.
Yep.
So it's a fair audition.
Absolutely. And I thoroughly enjoyed it, quite frankly.
Was this Shiloh?
This was Shiloh. We started off at that time, the band was called Felicity.
Felicity.
And we played proms, clubs, all around Texas. We drove all over the place. And I loved driving. And so I was a school bus driver when I was down in Florida, too.
He's done it all. Jack of all trades, literally.
He's a Renaissance man.
Exactly.
Well, I worked on Apollo 11, drove all the kids to school.
That's right.
You know?
That's exactly right. And but we were driving over, and I was actually at a CMA event downtown, and there was a group of people standing around chatting, and I walked up, and you know the circle sort of parted enough to let me stand there, and I'm listening to the conversation that's going on, and all of a sudden I realize the person's talking about Brownsville, Texas, and as you're talking about it, and I said, "What are you talking about, Brownsville, Texas?" And they said, "Yeah." And it was, and what year was that? And they said, and I said, I played your prom.
No way. No way.
Wow.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. And it was Felicity had played the prom. And but as the band moves down the road, trying to develop this new thing, the word had finally arrived, country rock.
Country rock.
Yep. And as the efforts were underway at developing that, the decision was, one, if you're going to do this legitimately, one must have a steel guitar.
Must have.
Yes.
Must have.
In the band.
Brings it back.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel you.
So we ended up getting a steel guitar player, Al Perkins, in the band. At that point, changed the name. We went out to California to do an audition for the record company and the producer who had done the single, because there was now a big question about whether the new guy that took over for the fellow who and the whole change that was going on, whether that was still going to pass muster. Was it still going to be appealing? We passed the audition, as the saying goes.
Yeah.
And that's when we became Shiloh and made an album produced by Kenny Rogers.
I was.
Come on, man.
Okay, so you've met Don Henley at school, and
Kenny enters the chat.
He asked you to be in a band, and now you have Kenny Rogers.
Yeah, it was
such a
great. It was really wonderful too, as far as the full circle stuff that has gone on repeatedly. Because Kenny started off with Kenny Rogers in the first edition, playing upright bass down in Texas with the Bobby Doyle Trio, and he was originally with the first edition on Reprise Records, and when I was at Warner Reprise. signed Kenny. It was the sort of the thing of Kenny Comes Home kind of thing to Reprise. And we were sitting in the studio, and I'm producing Kenny.
Yeah.
And Kenny turns to me and he said, "Do you realize where we were a little over 20 years ago today?" And I said, "No." And he said, "We were in the studio and I was producing you. And here we are now 20 years later and we're in the studio again.
Funny.
And you're producing me."
Isn't
How
that
awesome.
the wonderful thing about music, though?
Yeah.
It's-
Oh, yeah.
I mean, regardless of what genre, who you are, it's a very small world.
Mm-hmm.
You find yourself intertwined with 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon all the time, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, just that little fact there that he was producing you ended up producing him, became friends, I'm sure.
Oh gosh, yes.
How did that go with Shiloh? I mean,
Well, I think the band had been through so many changes, and I tell you, the original band, Felicity,
Yeah.
they were originally called the Four Speeds. They had been together since junior high school.
yeah,
In the band was Don, Jerry Surratt, the fellow who was killed on the motorcycle, Michael Bowden, playing bass, and Richard Bowden.
Yeah.
Richard Bowden of Pinkerton Bowden, the comedy duo that was around, and also a legend in his own right with his nickname. Played with Ronstadt. And people. Michael played with Emmylou Harris, the Hot Band, and then Patti Loveless for years. Al went with the Rolling Stones, and it was the Souther Hillman Fure Band. He played with a lot of different groups. Again, a legendary steel guitar player. Did really, really well. And I went to work for a publishing company. The band broke up. The original band had been I think the leadership had been set as far as strategically where they were headed, what they were doing, and how things would be done. With the addition of 2 new people into this, the dynamic shifted a bit. And as we got to Los Angeles, and the reality sets in about what it's going to take to be competitive and what it means to write really great songs. As that begins to set in, it became a little bit more clear when I listened to the Shiloh record, even to this day. The only person that had any business writing songs was Don.
Yeah.
He was the one that, as a English major in college, and just however he listened to songs and music, he understood the value of lyric and the importance of lyric. Not just the value, but the crucial importance of lyric. And I always said, it was a bit of a democracy, the band was, so that if you had a song idea or something, then you kind of got something to contribute to the record. And I said, thank God I only wrote 2 songs on that record, and even bigger, thank God, one of them was a steel guitar instrumental. And people say, why is that, Jim Ed? And I say, because they only get one chance to hear what a dumbass I am, because my lyrics, it was just really not a good song at all.
I mean, he's one of the great ones. Even back then, I'm sure you could see what was going on with it. But a lot of people, I didn't realize that they had gone on to do those things out of just that band.
Yeah.
That's
well,
amazing.
and Don got with Glenn.
Yeah.
And hanging out with Glenn and did the Eagles. And like I said, I went to work at a publishing company because I think I understood I wasn't going to be in bands anymore.
Which publishing company was this? The Jim?
No, you may be thinking of Ginseng. No,
No,
okay.
it was Big Jim or
Uncle Jim's
Uncle Jim.
music. Uncle Jim's music. No, that was actually because of the uncle. He was the uncle of one of the members of the band and had started the publishing company,
Nice.
Uncle Jim's Music. And it became the name of the band as well as the name of the publishing company. And that was the band that had Gary Nicholson in it. But I think it was realizing the importance of songs and the value, I realized putting myself into industry situations where I could learn more. Because in a band, you have very specific responsibilities. In Shiloh, I was a keyboard player and a guitar player.
Yeah.
You know, it was a background singer at best.
It's a bubble. You're in a band bubble, like alliteration. Look at that songwriter.
So you were in a publishing company in L.A.
It was Sunbury Dunbar. Sunbury Dunbar was RCA's publishing company.
Sounds like a law firm.
Well, they were English. Yeah, it does. They were English parentage there,
Right.
where they started, and I got a chance to hear songs come through. Songwriters wrote songs, turned them in.
Yeah.
I got to hear and get exposed to that. I got to appreciate and understand what it meant to run, plug songs, to get songs recorded. That whole process of what was going on, and it really helped inform, I think, my sensibilities about things.
Yeah.
Fortunately, while working at that company, I got a call from my buddies saying, we're working on this album and we want to put orchestra on it.
And who were those buddies again?
What's that?
Who were those buddies again?
It was the Eagles, and they had decided on the album Desperado that they wanted orchestra.
Yeah.
And they had been able somehow to convince Glenn Johns, the famous engineer-producer, that to give this kid a chance, because Don remembered that what I wanted to be was an arranger. And I go, well, Jim Ed does that. I had done a string quartet on my steel guitar instrumental on the Shiloh record, so everybody knew I knew how to do that. You know, get out there and.
It's funny how early life. It's funny how Florida prepared you for that right there. Yeah,
there
that's
you go.
it.
And it. So I, sure enough, I went over to London where the record was being recorded. They sent me a rough mix of the track that was piano, bass, and drums at that point, and vocal.
Yeah.
And I listened to that song for probably 3 weeks before I ever picked up a thing. I just listened to the song, just listened and imagined and dreamed in my head what it would be. And I came up with a unconventional approach to what I was going to have in the orchestra. And I didn't realize it was unconventional. I thought it was just the way it. Since I was arranging, it was my job to choose what was supposed to be, what the complement of instruments was to be. Yeah. And I didn't realize it was unconventional until the day when Glenn Johns said, "Well, Jim Ed, there are no violas." And I said, "No, sir. No, there aren't any. I have nothing but violins, cellos, and basses." He said, "Really? Why would you do that?" And I said, "Well, a cello playing up here in this upper register is worth about 2 violas. You can generate a lot more sound out of the instrument." And he just shook his head. And he introduced me at this point then to the contractor of the orchestra, and the players began filing in, and I go out into the record room out there where everything is all set up, and I notice there are chairs and microphones, no headphones.
Yeah.
And so I go back into Glenn and I say, "Glenn, there's no headphones out there for the string players." And he said, "Yeah, what's the problem?" And every session I'd ever been to in L.A., the orchestra players all had headphones. And he said, "Well, what's wrong?" And I said, "Well, how are they going to be able to tune or hear?" And he said, "Well, here, see that speaker over in the corner? I'm going to play the piano part, and they're going to tune up, and then they'll be. That's how they'll tune." And I said, "Well, how are they going to hear the track as well as going?" And he said, "Well, you're going to conduct, aren't you, mate?" And that day I became an arranger and a conductor. I said, "Well, I guess I am." And so I went out there, and by this point, the players have filed in, and I'm getting introduced to them, and it's like, oh, Jimmy, this was Cleve McGinnis. Oh, you might be interested. No, he played on yesterday.
Oh my goodness!
And it was just player after player that were filing in doing this, and I've started getting real nervous.
Yeah, as anyone would.
As I was the first, on the run through, I'm conducting. I'm going, man, I wonder how this is going. And I look over my shoulder back into the control room because I got my back to the window, and I look over, and and Don and Glenn Fry, not Glenn Johns, they're both staring at the speakers, which were up in the wall, and their mouths agape. And I go, oh dear Lord! I said that can be taken two ways.
Exactly. They either love it or they're just terrified.
They can be in awe, or they can be going, good Lord, what have we done? Wow. I walk back in, and it turns out they love it, and everything's good. But I tell you, the thing for me about that experience was, we go to dinner to celebrate that night. We've gotten a bottle of wine, and we're sitting there drinking and whatever, and the gravity of the moment, if you will, it sort of hits me, and I'm going, guys, how did you talk Glenn Johns into letting me do that? I mean, it's just, I don't quite get it. And they said, well, we just told him that's what we wanted done. He said, and then Glenn said, yeah, but it's probably good for you to know that he didn't think you were going to be able to pull it off, and he had Paul Buckmaster waiting in the wings. And Paul Buckmaster had done all of this great Elton John work, and legendary arranger and that kind of thing.
So Desperado. Weird little side note with me. So I grew up singing all over the eastern United States. And Winnebago carried sound system around, soundtrack tapes.
Yeah.
So I was kind of a local celebrity in my hometown. We had a festival called the Gingerbread Festival. We would have, big acts come and play it. One year it was Tanya Tucker and this new guy named Vince Gill. His hair down to his butt.
Yeah.
And it was just him and an acoustic. So the local radio station brought me back to meet Vince. I mean, Vince had nothing. He was just newly signed, nothing going on at this point. Nicest guy ever. The song we sang together was Desperado.
Wow.
Yeah, backstage. Fast forward, many years later, I end up knowing Vince, done some stuff with him. And now he is, I guess, an eagle.
Desperado.
Yeah.
An official Desperado.
Unreal.
Yeah. How about that?
He's great. Glenn, Vince, I've heard him now tell people a couple of times the story that he finally gets up the nerve, I think, to ask Don. So when you and Glenn started writing songs, what was the first song that you wrote? There's always this sense of that as you get started writing, that first. Don said, Desperado.
Oh, Jesus. Are you serious?
Yes.
The first song they ever wrote together?
Hey, Glenn said, Vince says, you got to be kidding. And he said, no, it's the first song we ever did. We sat down and realized what we needed to do, and we did it.
Yeah.
Wow. They did it.
They did it.
Wow.
It changed a lot of people's lives with that. And thank you for, sharing that story and working on that song. I mean, good Lord.
Well, hey, and you talk about working on that song. Oddly enough, I just left a situation where I heard Clint Black speaking to a group of people. And I had a chance to talk to Clint right before he went to talk up to the stage there to talk to the people, and had introduced myself to him, and then said, I just wanted to say I thought you did a great job at the Songwriters Hall of Fame. I think you really did a fabulous job at that. And we're chatting, and then I said, and I wanted to let you know I had done the original version of Desperado with the Eagles, and I said I also did the Linda Ronstadt version of Desperado, did the arranging on that. And I said I did it a third time. It was on your version of Desperado.
Wow. Did you really? All three?
On the Common Thread.
Wow.
record. Yeah, so I've done Desperado 3 times. I'm not doing it anymore.
You say that now.
Yeah.
So, after all this, I know you arranged for a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
What other would you say that you were that felt something like that? What was that song? What was
Well, a song that obviously there have been some songs that have come by that I've really loved.
Yeah.
We've Got Tonight, Bob Seger.
Oh, God, Lord.
Was a wonderful song. But when I played piano, I was working at the publishing company, and we get a call from Glenn, hey, can you come to the studio? And I said, what's wrong? He said, I've been fired. What's wrong, Glenn? He said, I can't play in B. They'd been trying to Take It to the Limit in C all day, and Meisner finally says, man, I can't do this, and I can't even sing it now in the studio, trying to do it night after night. I mean, it's just going to be, we've got to take it down a half step. Well, moving from C to B on a piano, unless you're, pianist, can be difficult.
Yeah.
You go from no sharps and flats to 5 sharps, and all of a sudden you're playing a lot of. And so I was the utility guy, and I went down to the studio. So I played the piano on the track on Take It to the Limit, and then they had me do Lion Eyes. They wanted some Floyd, some Floydian slips, And so I did the orchestral arranging then on the One of These Nights record with Take It to the Limit. And Take It to the Limit was another one where it was an homage really to Philadelphia in many respects. There are some similarities in Take It to the Limit and If You Don't Know Me By Now.
Yeah.
That's a great song too.
Yeah, it is.
Structure. And me trying to copy actually some things. And the start of the record, if you don't have perfect pitch, the goal was that you can't tell the difference if you're hearing If You Don't Know Me By Now, or if you're hearing Take It to the Limit.
Grabs the ear.
Yeah. Boom, And so, when moving to Hotel California, one of the songs that I really loved and was moved by was Wasted Time.
Yeah.
And it led me and moved me enough to then write a dedicated orchestral piece, not on assignment. I wasn't asked to do it. It was just I wrote it, and then the fates intervened once again, much like they did, walking down that apartment sidewalk and walking into an apartment, introducing myself. The fates intervened once again, where there was enough time at the end of what needed to be done that day for Hotel California album. We had it all done. There was like 20 minutes left. And I said, hey, guys, I wrote this piece. Would you be interested in hearing it? And they said, sure. So I go out, rehearse it, put it down, and they walk away from the day, everyone pleased because I did what needed to be done. Mm-hmm. Lo and behold, to get called to come down to the studio one day to hear the playback on the album. And, it was vinyl. And so side 1 ended with Wasted Time, and flipping it over, side 2 was the Wasted Time reprise.
Oh, wow.
The thing that I had written orchestrally for the record. So there have been moments, but I did that for a while, and then I moved to producing. I was still working at the publishing company when I one day got, and I was sure it was guys just like you pranking me.
What are you trying to say about us, Jim Ed?
I think
you think we're a bunch of jokesters.
We would never do that, ever.
David would.
It was a call, and the receptionist said, hey, Jim Ed, Clive Davis is on the phone.
Oh, Jesus.
And I said, yeah, right. And she said, well, what do you want me to do? And I said, it's one of my friends, playing a joke on me. And she said, well, what do you want me to do? And I finally just, yeah. And I said, is this Jim Ed Norman? I go, yeah. And he said, this is Clive Davis. And I went, yeah, right. And he said, no, it really is Clive Davis. I got your name from Hank Medris and Dave Apple. None of my friends in L.A. knew that I'd been in New York working for these guys. They were producing Tony, Orlando, and Don. And a couple of other things. And I'd gone in to do some arranging for them. And Clive had called them about producing this artist. They didn't have time, and they said, there's a kid on the West Coast that wants to produce records. You ought to get in touch with him. And Clive
how'd the stomach feel right then?
Yeah.
Shit.
I've been a nervous wreck.
Well, and he said, hey, I don't know anything about you other than the fact that you've worked with the Eagles on this arrangement stuff. Would you mind meeting with me at the hotel? I'd like to talk with you. And I said, I think I could arrange that.
I could carve out some time.
Yes,
Carve out
sir.
some time.
Yeah.
So I'd go over and I'd meet with him. I think it was Bungalow 8 at the Beverly Hills Hotel. That was, he would set up shop every time he came to L.A., and that's where he would have his stuff, and he had his, tapes and machines and play stuff and demos and listen.
What was that word you said? Tape?
Yes. But when he started playing me songs, I said, I'd like to play you some songs and tell me what you think of them. And I said, okay. So he played one, and I'd say, I don't hear that. I don't really know. I don't have a feeling for that. And he said, well, I think that's a hit. I'm gonna do that with Barry Manilow. And I go, oh. And then he played me the next song, and then I said, I don't hear that. I don't. Doesn't really do anything. He said, well, I think that's a hit. I'm gonna do that with Melissa Manchester. Oh. And he played me another one. He said, and he said, I think that's a hit. I'm gonna do that with Eric Carmen. He's like, he just started playing, and I went, man, this goes on for 20 minutes. I'm saying I don't like anything. Lucky me, he plays one that resonates, and I go, if you're going to give me a chance to make a record, let it be with that song right there. I got it. I know what to do. I got a feeling for it. I think I can hear it in my head finished. And he said, okay, let me think about who I'd want you to do it with. Can you come back tomorrow? Yes, sir, I can. Came back the next day. He played me an artist and said, can this artist do this song? I said, yes, she can. And I got it. I got it covered. And so the very first record I did was a song that Peter McCann wrote called Right Time of the Night, and with Jennifer Warnes as an artist, because of a publisher. God loved the publisher.
They make the world go round.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. A publisher ended up calling Clive and said, you've had this song on hold for 6 months, which is nothing now, right?
Right. Yeah.
I've got a song that's been on hold for 7 years now.
That's what I mean.
It's
Is that 6 months is nothing. And he said, you've had it on hold for 6 months. If you don't, John Travolta has heard it and wants to record it.
Oh, wow.
Now, this was back when it was Welcome Back Cotter, or Vinnie Barbarino, whatever. He was a heartthrob, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
He was doing an album.
Oh, yeah.
And so somewhat under duress, Clive sends the song to the promotion department, and they say, Clive, we think we could do something with it.
Yeah.
And it goes on to be a top 10 record.
Amazing.
It ended up being heard by another artist and being their favorite record on the radio when they were looking for a new producer.
Here I am.
Say no more.
And so next thing I was in the studio doing was Anne Murray.
Anne Murray.
And the first record I did with Anne Murray was a song called You Needed Me, which
Sang it.
good Randy Goodrum.
Had the soundtrack to it. Sang it.
Did you?
Sure did.
Look at you.
Well, Mom did a lot of oldies and did, some current stuff. And at that time, You Needed Me was current.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So here I am in my little tuxedo singing an Anne Murray song.
Did you get a picture?
I wish you had a video of that.
There's a bunch of pictures of me in my little tuxedo floating around. I'm sure we can find one.
I need to see that
on the interwebs somewhere. Yeah. It's terrible. I didn't get picked on in school at all. Not at all. Producing. Very accomplished arranger, producer. You end up running a small label.
It was 12 people when we started.
Yeah.
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 How did you transition from L.A. to Nashville?
I had been coming to Nashville producing a couple artists. I did Mickey Gilley, Johnny Lee,
Yep.
Urban Cowboy stuff. You know,
Looking for love,
the
wrong place. God, I love that song.
Great song.
Love that movie.
It's a great song.
Sissy. Get in the truck, Sissy. Sorry.
David's got to live it out.
I'm a fanboy right now. I can't help it.
I've been fortunate again. I started producing, doing some work here. The very first record I ever recorded in Nashville was right over yonder with Mickey Gilley. A song. It was "Stand By Me" for Urban Cowboy. It was the first record I ever did in Nashville, and the success that I was having as a producer, I began to have artists ask questions like, "What do you think of my record company? What do you think of my album cover? What do you think of my manager? What do you asking me questions that I was ill and unprepared really to answer, unless I just made something up. I could give an opinion, but it was not. It was not an informed opinion.
Yeah.
It was really just a personal opinion. I thought to myself, I need to go learn how this business really works to be able to answer honestly. I want to be able to help artists. I mean, these artists are asking me legitimate questions about struggles they're having. You know, they weren't just flippant questions. They were really concerned. And so I got to learn the business. Shiloh had been on a label called Amos Records, and the owner of the label was a fellow named Jimmy Bowen.
Yeah.
I called Jimmy, who was down here at the time in Nashville. When I say down here, over here. I guess would be a better way to say it. In L.A. it would be over.
Yeah.
And he was, at the time, the head of Elektra Records. Yeah. And I called Bowen and said, Jimmy, would you be willing to put in a good word for me at Elektra in Los Angeles at the company for maybe an A&R job? I'd like to go apply and work in A&R and be an A&R guy so I could learn about the business. And just it feels to me like that would be a good place for me to be in the coming time that I have, years, whatever it is, to learn the business. And he said, sure, I'd be happy to. In that interim, the decision is, because I'd already had an office in Nashville, that's where you were asking about Uncle Jim's music. I actually had a company called Ginseng and Ginsong Music. That's the one that Gary Nicholson was signed to.
Yeah.
And
wonderful songwriter, Gary. Love that guy.
Amazing.
Sweet human being, too.
Yes, sweet human being for sure. Whole family. Sweet. Barbara.
Nathan, even.
Nathan, all of them. And so the decision was to move to Nashville. Had 18-month-old and 6-week-old baby girls.
Wow.
It was going to be a better place for children maybe than L.A. And when calling Bowen to say, to wave off the appeal to Elektra about a gig there, he said, well, why don't you just come work for me? I'll teach you. So I'm thinking about retiring in 5 years. Maybe I could teach you enough about the business, and then you would have an opportunity, depending on how you do and how you fare and all of this, in getting a chance to run the company. And I said, okay. So the negotiation goes on with Elektra about coming down to do A&R job with Bowen and Elektra. And during the negotiation, there is a trade between Elektra and Warner Bros. The new head of Elektra that goes in, Bob Krasnow, doesn't really like country music, but loves R&B. The Warners has not had a great run in R&B music. They've been known as another type of label at the time. And so there's a trade, which is Krasnow gets the R&B music that Warner's has, and Warner's is then going to now be the country division of Elektra, and it gets folded in. So I come and I'm working for Bowen A&R, and the 5-year period of learning turned into 7 months.
Yeah.
And at the end of
Whoops.
at the end of 7 months,
Fast forward.
at the end of 7 months, Bowen leaves to go to a competitor, and in that the head of Warner's, a fellow named Mo Austin, a legend in the business in his own right, just an amazing company. He'd been there 35 years.
Yeah.
And Mo came and spent 10 days in Nashville interviewing a lot of people. And at the end of it, he said, Jim Ed always had great success with A&R people, Lenny Waronker, Russ Titleman, Ted Templeman. I mean, the people that had been there as producers. Jimmy Bowen had actually worked at Reprise Records in Los Angeles before he came to Nashville. And I said, so if you want the job running the company, you got it.
So 7 months.
7 months. There were 12 of us. It was a little different kind of thing, but I said yes, and took the ball, ran with it, decided that we were going to do a 180 from the approach that was being done, which had been sign people who already have a name.
Yeah.
And the phrase that was used was fix the music,
Yeah.
Make it better technically as far as digital and better songs, whatever it was. Just try to make
Polish them up a little bit.
Yeah. Mine was I'd heard people talking one day, and they were talking about this great father-son relationship between Ricky Skaggs and Bill Monroe. And I sat and looked at it for a minute, and I thought, that's more a grandfather-grandson relationship than it is a father-son relationship. We've left a whole generation that said, that's what we're going to do. We're going to be responsible for signing the next generation of country music artists.
Brilliant concept.
And out of that came Randy Travis, Dwight Yoakam, Faith Hill, Travis Tritt, and the music side. Then we started doing comedy. My background, big band, whatever stuff, it was, well, let's just be open to, I imagined that instead of being the country division of Warner's, we would become the Nashville division. And one day we would become maybe the Mid-South division of Warner Brothers, and that we would recognize the music across the board, the talent that was here, not just country. We would recognize all talent. So I signed Take Six, Bela Fleck and the Flecktones, Beth Chapman, who was, while writing country songs, Beth Nielsen Chapman, writing country songs that other people were recording. As an artist, she was really more pop and adult contemporary. And for a brief period, we were actually the Hispanic division of Warner's.
Wow.
And I had said, you guys are crazy. Why aren't you developing and doing something here, of all places? And they said, we're not really into that. And then I got a call from Mo one day and said, Jimmy, that thing you said about Hispanic, we think you're right. we're taking it over. And it was like,
okay,
good, great. So we just backed down. We started, Warner's was not in the Christian music business. We started the Christian music division of Warner's. It was called Warner Alliance, which was subsumed into now Word, in whose offices we sit.
You shaped a lot of what's going on, and you shaped a generation of music. You shaped some of my heroes, Travis Tritt. I mean, I grew up singing his stuff.
Randy Travis, Dwight Yoakam, good Lord,
Dwight Yoakam, Kentucky boy.
Well, and what's great too is that all of that came from great A&R consciousness, as well as an environment in which A&R people could feel free to act on their intuitions and feelings. Randy, Martha Sharp, Travis, Doug Grau, Dwight, Paige Rowden Levy, that as A&R people then were brought into the company, allowed to, again, act on those internal energies.
So you mean they went with their gut on somebody as opposed to looking at the numbers?
That's right. They went on their gut. They would come and say, "Hey, I got something. Okay, let me hear it. Let me see what's going on." And it didn't sign everything.
No.
But when you hear something, you go, "Yep, go, 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 go."
I think you picked some really good ones, right? I think you did okay with those.
Well, you'd size up someone's real passion for something too. It's like, are you really committed?
Exactly.
Would you walk through fire for this?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
What do you want to do for the music?
But yeah, we ended up having a great run and having a wonderful experience with so many of those artists. When I think of not only the great success with country artists, but the artists like Take Six.
Is that Take Six? I'm going to screw this up. Is that Claude McKnight?
It is. It's Claude.
Okay.
Brian's brother. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I first moved to Nashville, I lived in Donaldson. It was 1998. I lived out in Donaldson, went to the Donaldson YMCA. Played basketball after work every night.
Yeah.
Played with this guy, became friends, talk, had mutual friends. It was Claude.
It was Claude.
Yeah. Had no idea who he was. One of the sweetest, nicest dudes. Pretty decent jumper,
Yeah.
But you said Take Six, and it hit me. I'm like, I still every once in a while we'll talk. But yeah, Brian McKnight's brother, Take Six, huge, wonderful vocal group.
It was an amazing experience because I had been in the studio working with Barry Beckett producing Hank Jr. record, and Hank Jr. had wanted to do a song that day that pissed me off. and in my being pissed off, I remember, my responsibility is you help an artist fulfill their vision. You got to stay out of it to some extent. There, you got to just help them. And so I left the studio we were at Emerald, and I'm walking down 16th now. Music Square East, is it?
Mm-hmm. We're nobody's sure what it is anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
But
fine.
walking back to the Warner building, and I have to pass by the Koinonia bookstore, which was right there in the corner of 16th and I forget Grand or whatever it is that crosses. And the doors are open, and I could see a little commotion, so I went in, and they have this little ante room next to the bookstore record portion of the thing, and I said, "What are you going to?" They said, "We have a showcase going on today." And I went in and I sat down, and there were 6 microphones up there. And I sat down. There was probably 10 people in this thing to do it. And this group of people walked out and started saying, some most glorious, amazing stuff I have ever heard.
Oh, they're unreal.
Issuing forth from voices. So I went to some people that were on the periphery of all this, and I said, "Are you involved?" And they said, "Yeah, we're their managers." And I said, "Listen, I don't know anything about what it is to do and how to deal with it for sure. But if you want to deal at Warner Brothers, you got one."
Holy crap.
Now, what was funny is that I had on...
At the tiniest, most unsuspecting place on Music Row.
Claude McKnight had a career because you got pissed off at Hank Jr.
Yeah.
I have to... Does he know this?
No. And don't you dare tell him. He'll dislike me even more.
Oh, my God.
I had on blue jeans, and I remember a Surfboards Hawaii T-shirt.
Yeah.
I grew up in Florida surfing. I love surfing.
Did they think you were crazy?
Huh?
Did
the people, they just looked at me, and it was like, okay, well, thank you. Thought I was crazy. Yeah. That's what was happening. But 48 hours later, they were in my office, and we were having a conversation, and signed them. And what was great was we did the record, and it was all a cappella. So now what are you going to do? We were still in vinyl world. We were making vinyl records, and we had a thing on vinyl albums because you had enough space called liner notes.
Yeah.
And there would be little things that would be written about people sometimes. And so I sent it to Kenny Rogers.
Yeah.
Roseanne Cash.
Yeah.
and I don't remember, but I remember the main one that really helped tip the scale there was Kenny, who then in turn gave it to Quincy.
Oh yeah.
Oh my
And
gosh,
when Quincy
are you
heard
serious?
it, he said, "Who are these people? What's going on?" And I remember even we had Quincy's 55th birthday party at my house. You know, it's like he came to town to wanted to record, have Take Six sing. I think it was Back on the Block album, something he was doing. And the guys, I had told one time in a group of people the story that when we shipped that album, we shipped. It was I said we shipped 17,000 copies or something like that. And the sales guy, Neil Spielberg, who was working at Warner's, he said, "Jimmy, what are you talking about?" And I said, "You know, when that Take Six for the first album, we shipped 17," and he said, "No, we shipped 1,700. And
Big difference.
and I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I remember that it was very few that we shipped of the record." What happened, though, is that because of the nature of the music, the word began to get around, and they got on the Grammys.
Yeah.
And their performance on the Grammys was like the performance of almost like Stapleton on CMA or something. Those moments that happened that just changed the course. The next year, they were back on the Grammys, receiving Grammys, and the album had sold 1 million copies, an a cappella record that sold
That's
over
amazing.
1 million copies.
By chance, just by chance.
Yeah.
You've been walking by there that day.
That's right.
Who knows who knows? So, Warner Brothers, what after that? I know did you take a break for a little while?
I did, you know.
So you were there for 20 years, 21 years?
20 years, yeah.
You needed one after that.
Yeah, because I had started when I was a
Did
kid.
you
Like I
learn
said,
about the music business? Did you figure it out?
No.
That's the most hilarious thing to me is that you were like, you know what? I got people asking me questions about the music business.
Well, I'm gonna go figure
I
it
have to
out.
go find out about the music. 7 months later, you're running Warner Brothers Records.
Yeah.
That is absolutely baffling to me.
Well,
If you want to know how your car works, why don't you just go to a car plant and figure out how it works?
Can you work on time travel?
yeah, exactly.
Can you go back to Kennedy Space Center and get time travel figured out?
Yeah, I mean, I love physics. My idol is a fellow named Richard Feynman.
Richard Feynman, yes.
Just amazing.
Did you watch The Big Bang Theory?
Yeah.
Love that show.
Yeah. My children were the ones that hit me to it. I didn't even really know about it. They said, "Dad, you got to watch The Big Bang Theory." And I said, "What? Yeah, I watched some TV show." And they said, "But I think you'd like it." So I actually watched them. And they said,
The dialogue and the writing on that
Yeah.
show was one of the best I've ever seen in my life.
It was
so
great.
smart and
Great
just
show.
timing amazing. But anyway, you were there at Warner Brothers for
I was there. I took a break, and people would say, "Well, so you retired?" And I said, "Retired? That sounds like I was tired again."
Yeah.
I was tired still because I'd started when I was 15,
Yeah.
playing and doing music and being on this fast track.
I mean, you
And
haven't stopped since Iowa at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like, what I knew is I wasn't going any place cold.
Yeah.
So I went to Hawaii
Well,
and did about 10 years. And got out on, I guess, probation. I don't know.
where did you live out there?
It was on the Big Island of Hawaii.
Actually, Hawaii. Okay.
On the
Yeah.
island of Hawaii.
But you were still doing like music stuff out there though too, weren't you?
I started.
You couldn't get away from it.
I did. Well, I didn't do anything really while I was. I started working towards it. I helped start a music industry business program at University of Hawaii, which is a joint venture with Belmont here in town. That brought me back into town again, and I spent a lot of time in the water and on my surfboard.
I was going to ask you
driving
if you
around
surfed.
and,
I tried it when we went to Hawaii a couple of years ago. I tried it.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad once I got out there.
Yeah.
I could sort of get up on the board. The getting out there was about the worst thing I've ever done in my life. I threw up.
Yeah.
So they had me on a big longboard.
Yeah.
So it was hard to go through the waves anyway. And there were sea urchins all around, so you couldn't put your feet down.
Oh, man.
So you had to paddle from the shore out there.
Yeah.
I was figured out I was fat, out of
Well,
shape.
that's absolutely right. It's the best shape I've ever been in,
Yeah.
was being in the water paddling, because
Yeah.
you're moving everything. And I remember the last time I was out, it was at a place, it's on Oahu. Is that where you were? Were you
I was in Maui.
On
I was
Maui,
right outside Lahaina.
Well, I was at a place called Makaha, over on Oahu, on the southwest, on the west side, and it's big.
Yeah.
It can get big.
No,
Bigger-
these weren't big.
This could get bigger than I had any business on, and I paddled out, and there's an interesting kind of thing. I turned it into a life kind of notion for myself, which is so much of all these things are a little bit like surfing. How do you catch a wave? You paddle and you paddle and you paddle and you paddle and paddle until you can't paddle anymore, and then you paddle some more.
Yep.
And then you finally get. But it was paddling out. You got the waves crashing in, and I would say halfway paddling out, I said, you could die. I was like 65, and I'm paddling out through this, and he said, you were a bit of an idiot today doing this, as far as where you are and what it is going on.
Brother, I felt the same way.
And I was getting pummeled. Well, it is, you get outside past all that, and you then sit on your board and you catch a breath, and all of a sudden you turn towards the shore. You look behind you and you see a set coming in, and you paddle and you catch this, you get up, and it's just like Brian Wilson, Janet Dean said, you catch a wave and you're sitting on top of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing like it. It's just an exquisite feeling to be
It's
doing
the
this.
Zen moment.
Yes, absolutely.
It's complete Zen.
Absolutely.
It's fly fishing for the first time in Montana.
Yeah.
It's that perfect swing in golf that keeps you coming back. It's that Zen moment. It's the perfect record. It's the song when you hear it on the radio. There's all those moments.
The only difference I think is that, but then you have this fateful decision, which is you get to the end of the wave and you kick out of the wave and you turn around and you're faced with, am I going to paddle back out and do that again?
Yeah.
And like a fool, you say yes.
Yeah. There we go.
Because you want that high again of that
Yeah.
Zen moment or whatever it is. I didn't that day. I paddled
didn't.
right to shore. I got out of the water and said,
When-
just
Went and had some sushi and was done with it.
Well, saying that, then you literally rode the wave from Hawaii all the way back to Nashville.
All the way to
And you
Nashville.
got your butt back in the music business to try and find that high again.
Yep, that's right. And I did. I was fortunate to the opportunities that I got when coming back, and then, amidst all those opportunities, to then get a call. We're going to put the Hotel California tour
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, what are you doing on that now, pal?
Well,
Yeah, tell us about this
Yeah.
experience.
Well, the call from my buddy.
Yeah. We'll call him Old Glenn.
Yeah. Well, in this case, it was old Don.
Oh,
Old
I mean
Don.
Old Don.
Yeah.
Come on,
Yeah.
man.
I'm sorry. Well, that just screwed that one all up.
Yeah.
Let's edit that out. I had Glenn Johns in my head.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I got a call from my buddy Don Henley.
Yeah.
And Jim Ed, we're going to put Hotel California on the road. I want to do it. I want to do it with an orchestra. You've done all our orchestral arranging and stuff through the years. You can do all of it or none of it. It's up to you. And so it was on the front end, I kind of demurred, like, I don't want to go on the road. What do you got on the road? I finally said, yes, I'm going to go on the road. I'll get a chance to hang out with my buds and visit and just do stuff. And I'll come to think of it, I'll never, ever get a chance to stand in front of 60 people and conduct the stuff I wrote when I was 20, and have that experience. It's just not going to happen again, or it's very, very unlikely. I shouldn't say it's never, but it's unlikely. So it was, yes, I'm going to go do this. And I thought I'd be gone for a year, and then COVID interrupted it did all of us and everything. So it lasted 3.5 years.
Yeah.
But the Hotel California portion of that life is over. It was a long show, and the decision was there was a difference of opinion in the group about what to do as they continue forward.
Yeah.
And the decision ultimately was to go to the greatest hits approach, which is then more of a 90-minute show on stage instead of 3 hours.
Yeah.
And
the people's attention spans these days are shortened substantially. So,
So you guys were playing for 3 hours a night.
Yeah, that's just, it wasn't nonstop because you did the Hotel California album. That was, say, an hour.
Yeah.
They would take a 15-minute break and come back, but then play nonstop for the 2 hours.
Warriors.
Yeah.
Dudes are warriors.
Yeah.
People don't understand.
Yeah.
I think like Springsteen, the Eagles, the Stones, or just how much they still give it. I watched the Stones at Bridgestone, not Bridgestone, at Nissan last time they came. And Mick Jagger,
I heard he's still just an animal.
I bet he does 18 miles a show.
Yeah.
He never stops.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. But, I mean, the guys, the Eagles, probably my favorite band of all time.
Yes, it reminds all of us that listen the value of great songs.
Yeah.
That what that is about is great songs. Attention to detail when making the records, making great sounding records, and caring about whether something was in tune or out of tune.
Yeah.
And having more good stuff in your record than you do bad stuff.
Yeah.
I used to have a lot of conversations with Glenn. I worked with Glenn on his first solo record, No Fun Allowed, and it was. You forget about making your record. I go back and listen to some of my favorite records of Alta that influenced me, that changed my life. And if I listen to them for what's wrong with them and what's bad about them, I can find it all over the place. I can find out of tune stuff. I can find just bad stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't ever get that far unless I force myself to listen to what's wrong with it, because there's so much good about it that it sweeps you off your feet.
Yeah.
So the goal that we all have when dealing with this is putting music together that has more good in it than it does bad, and forget about trying to get rid of all the bad. It'll never happen.
Don't be perfect.
Oh yeah, just
Perfect imperfections.
So the guys worked hard to make sure that it wasn't horrible.
Yeah.
At the performance level, but most importantly, what they brought to the table were great songs.
Yeah.
Just amazing songs that'll
That's what it's all about.
stand the test of time.
Mm-hmm.
They're definitely timeless.
Spoken like a true publisher.
Yes, sir. All day, every day.
Hey, and it all begins with the song.
It all begins
and
with the
it
song.
is songwriters. I used to spend time right next door.
Yeah.
At Tree Music when I first came to town, and I would spend as many as 12 hours in that building listening to people come through and play songs.
Yeah.
When I first started coming to town, and from Braddock to Red Lane to Cochran to Howard. I mean, just the people that would walk through that I got a crash course in great songs and great music. And then the pluggers were all wonderful people, and they would be playing me back catalog.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I got a treasure trove of music handed to me when I first came to Nashville.
So when you first came to Nashville, that was like the early 80s? Is that right?
The first time I came to Nashville there was a celebration, actually, I think in '78, associated with Ann and CMA activity or whatever. And it was the first time that I ever came to Nashville. The first time I then recorded in Nashville was 1980.
Okay.
And was from there coming on a regular basis. Had already, I think in I have to go back and look at the date, probably by 77, 78, had the office set up in Nashville, the Ginseng Publishing office. I have to a lot of times go back and look at past information that's
I
been
can't
written
imagine
down.
why.
Well,
You've done so much.
The other thing too is I've lied about my age. We're talking about
Billy
lying about his age. Well, I lied about my age, and I started fairly early on. I think it was when I was 31. I didn't like the sound of it.
Yeah.
And so I said I was 35.
Okay. So you went
and
up.
when I turned, I started going up in 5-year increments.
Yeah.
The other thing I learned was that you could say how old you were for 5 years and it never changed. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And then when I became 36, I didn't like the sound of it, so I started saying I was 40. I just always had 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, like that. And I got a call from a publication in town once, and they said, we're getting ready to do a story, and it said, we can't tell what's
How are you
going on.
179 years old?
I was like, well, do you mind telling us how old you are? The dates are all over the place. About every time you've been asked how old you were, you said we don't. There's a before the internet, before people could go Google and try to find out stuff. And I said, I don't mind telling you, but I'll tell you how I look at it now. Is no longer how old I am, but how many really good years do I think I have left?
Yeah.
And that's when everything becomes a little more urgent.
Sure. Sure.
Like,
a little sweeter, though, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Man, you're just, it's amazing. I mean, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so, when you first came to Nashville, that was like 40 years ago. And I know Nashville has changed a lot. I mean, especially just in the last 10 years, it's changed a lot. But what was it like being in LA and then coming to Nashville when you A and B the two music scenes? What was that like back then?
It was an interesting experience because people in Los Angeles had a vision of what country music was, and people in Nashville had a vision of what pop music was. And neither one of them were right about the other. And it had to do with, I came to appreciate, I think, and understand that it was a general lack of respect for each other's respective art forms.
Yeah. That kind of still exists today to an extent.
Really?
I believe. I mean, the world's getting smaller every day, but, I still think Nashville people are like, well, pop music is this, and they're like, well, country music's this, especially when you start dabbling in the film and TV world. They're like, oh, we need a pop song, and a Nashville person writes a pop song. The LA people here are like, oh, that's country, and then they want to write a country song, and we're like, oh no, that's a pop song.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, and hopefully, what I would say is I hope that at least the respect is improving, that the opportunity for understanding what that issue is all about is it. You're only going to really be able to contribute to a particular art form, I think, other than just sheer serendipity and good fortune, if you respect it.
Yeah.
You really have to respect it and to appreciate what the sentiment is and what the ethos of the process is. Because if you look at it as, oh, I get it, you go back to the 70s. And maybe even the 80s then, and an LA person would look at what country was, they'd sit down and write a song, and every one of them was sort of like a comedy buffoonish song is what they would write. Yeah. And that was their version of what country. I said, no, that's the antithesis of country, what it is you've just done. And I think it's the same way than the other way would be. Anyone from Nashville who says, I'm going to write something pop, just because you put a major seventh chord in the song does not make it pop, depending on where the melody's going and what else it is that you have to say. It's like the Eagles informed a generation of people who subsequently then think of themselves as country songwriters and what they look at. But the Eagles really only had a couple of songs ever played on country radio. Lion Eyes was one of them. That again, the lyric structure and what it is that went on with those songs did not capture the day-to-day country ethos that makes something then really truly country.
Yeah.
That it can be there as an inspiration to inform a new generation of people about how they're going to, and that's another thing that's happened here. I know in Nashville, I remember when being on the CMA board, and there would be committee discussions and discussions about the country and new country and this kind of country and that kind of country, and that's not really country.
Yeah.
I used to listen to all these things, and I came to the position that was, who's going to decide what's really country? Is it going to be the Greek chorus standing out here on the side saying, you're not really country, and making some pronouncement? Or is it the progenitors of the art form? Is it the people who make the art who then decide and set the template for what it is that's going on? And I think it should be that. I think it should be the people that are doing it are the people who then decide what it is at any given moment.
Absolutely.
But the interesting thing is that when I grew up, we gathered around a single campfire on which you could hear both Frank Sinatra and Johnny Tillotson and the Beatles and the Stones. They were emanating from the same campfire that we all gathered around. Yeah. The bifurcation of and the role that business played in radio, creating all of these segmented areas of where now you hear things, allows for now subsequent sort of commentary, I think, about, well, that's not really this or that's not really that.
Yeah.
That doesn't fit this, that doesn't fit that. And after a while, you're just chasing your tail.
Well, even in said genre, even in country, I mean, there was times back in the 80s, 90s when Randy came out and Travis came out that they were looked upon as not country enough.
Yeah.
Well, I guess Randy wouldn't have been so much, but each generation has its own disdain for the other. Right. And now it's we had the bro country thing, and everybody before that was like, well, that's not country. And now it's moved on to another thing. But I think the essence of it is the same.
Yes,
it's great lyric.
It's like you said,
real.
The Eagles never really made it in country, but then two people I can think of off the top of my head, Clint Black and Travis Tritt, both covered Eagles songs, which ended up being hits for them in their careers.
Yes.
So it's I don't know if the production was different or maybe just people just knew those songs and loved them and they became hits, So it's cool how it still resonates. Eagles still have a real impact in country music.
Absolutely. Like I said, they clearly informed at least a generation and maybe even two of writers and creative people that will keep giving and keep doing, so that the success that even Clint and that Travis had, that as it was played out in the marketplace, the same was happening on the pop side with Dolly singing 9 to 5 and Here You Come Again, right? Having the legitimate, quote, records, it leads to then even a subsequent discussion that to me is totally a separate one, and I won't get into it other than to say, look, it's either about, are you talking about the artist business or the record business? Because you can make a 3-minute vignette that can work at any given time in a particular genre, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the person is that. That's from whence they come and what have you. So, you see examples both ways of songs that have crossed and things that have happened various times in the industry where one is more receptive to the other. The introduction of SoundScan changed the face of country music when all of a sudden people were able to see the real sales that were taking place with country artists. It was like, whoa, there's a whole huge number of people that are really interested in what it is that's going on with this kind of thing. And it just, as the industry and the distribution process and the discovery process happens, it changes the face of every art form. When A staple for us would be the 5/7 chord, right? You know, you're sitting there playing along and do stuff like that.
Yeah.
You hit that 4, and then you hit a 5, and you hit a 5/7. You know, you're doing it ain't just a 5 chord, but it's a 5/7. That extra tension.
Yeah.
If you're in C, that tension between the B natural and the F natural.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing that's just really getting you.
Evokes emotion.
Yes. And you want that resolution coming out of the other side. Well, the first time that was introduced in music was on Beethoven's Eroica Symphony, and it was considered so, you know, dissonant to people. They were throwing stuff at the stage, and then they hated the sound of the thing. It was, but you know, Johnny B. Good. You look at song after song after song after song. The entire careers have been made. Chuck Berry made a whole career out of what those chords are and what that situation is. And as a group of people, as a culture, mature around any art form and given a sensibility about the way something should sound, the more changes that are allowed to come that are informed changes and things that are interesting and exciting musically. How many times have we been just sort of going down the road and all of a sudden you hear something and you just stop in the tracks?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's the quality of performance and artistry as much as it is over just this 3-minute vignette.
Yeah.
There's something that has happened here in this moment that transcends just the 3-minute vignette.
Yeah.
I know I just heard something.
It becomes genreless. If it's good, it's good.
Yeah.
And that's what I've always said. I grew up, I've listened to everything from gangster rap to Beethoven. And I listen to Beethoven when I shop now in the supermarket.
Yeah.
So I don't get mad at people. First of all, thank you for coming in here and doing this today, because this has been circled on my calendar for a while now.
My apologies, not up front, because here we are at the end. My apologies for yammering on it.
You have not yammered at all, sir.
Stories being longer than they need to be.
That's what we want. That's what we're here for.
I have one question I want to ask before we kind of wrap up here. Towards the end of your tenure at Warner, you ran into the Napster debacle, which is kind of like one of the first things that really started disrupting the music business, at least in my generation. I mean, I was a freshman at Belmont when 2001, when all that was kind of going down. And so, you know, we're 20 some odd years past that. Now we're at the advent of AI and all that. And I don't know how hip you are to all that, but I would be curious to know your thoughts on this new AI frontier and how it's affecting music and how maybe it will affect music. And then what can the music business do to get on board with that? Because, you know, I know in 2001, labels were fighting Napster, trying to keep it the way it was. And I don't know how your experience was then with Warner at the time, because I was still in college and I had no idea what was going on. But I'd be curious to know your thoughts on those two things.
There are so many things that are going through my head right now. I won't be able to condense it down into two sentences. The first thing that would be went through my head was the introduction into music of the drum machine. Mm-hmm. And what a furor that caused initially and stuff like that. And what was great was the perspective. I remember when talking one day with Eddie Bears, world legend,
yes,
country music Hall of Famer. Mm-hmm. And his comment was, when we were talking one day in the studio working on something, and he said, "Jim Ed, I made friends with it."
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. Our failure to make friends with what Napster did. And I found myself going and making a presentation to the Warner people up in New York early on, because I'd been involved in the introduction of digital equipment into Nashville. And that whole process of what was going on. But I went up and did a presentation, and it was to the technological people. and it was about a CD and the empty space that was available on a CD, and had already, in my mind, had moved to what it could become as a promotional opportunity where one artist could talk about another artist, and had gone and talked to Panasonic and had come up even with a logo for it and everything. It was called The Last Word, and it was a button you could press on the machine that would access now this unprogrammed information. Come in.
Oh, it's fun. We're here late.
Oh,
We're good.
Okay, thank you.
Trash duty calls.
hey, notice there was a that'd be a great way for it to start. We're good. You know, so
Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
But so a failure to make friends with stuff. As I got called back up 6 months later to go to the presentation again, and I looked out there and I realized there was a whole sea of new people. And I went and talked to the head guy afterwards, and I said, "What's the deal? There's all new people here." And he said, "Yeah, those other people, they were all idiots. We got rid of them, and
Wow.
these are all the new people." And I said, "Oh, okay." 9 months later, they called me to come back up again, and I went back up, and I looked out there, and sure enough, it was all new people again. And
Wow.
I did about 15 minutes of my 45 presentation, and the head guy that had me come in, he said, "No, you know, tell him about the dream, Martin." Tell him. And it was, and I said, "No, I've told him anybody got any questions, whatever." And he got really upset with me. I don't blame him in hindsight for getting upset, but I had to go. Then we went into his office and sat down, and I said, "Listen, you're failing to appreciate and understand what it is that's going on. You got to make friends. You've got to build a rapport with what it is that's happening here. You can't keep firing these people. They need to get up to speed. And then no new group is going to, technology is changing like this. It's going so fast." I actually at one point undertook to do a bit of an experiment with, just because you can do something, does that mean you should do it? Mm-hmm. And it involved an artist that had signed at Warner's named Anita Cochran and Conway Twitty. We had a meeting one day, and we were doing an album, and we had talked about doing a duet. We'd already done a duet. She had done one with Steve Warner that was "What If I Said."
Yeah,
It had
I remember that.
hit record and a award nominee. I think it was up for vocal event of the year the same year. Faith and Tim. I'd done the string arrangement on Garth and Tricia in Another's Eyes.
Yeah.
So it was Garth and Tricia. So all three of those records were in there. But she said, "Well, my favorite singer was Conway Twitty." I said, "Well, that's not going to happen. Conway's no longer with us."
Yeah.
She left my office, and I sat there and thought for a minute. And I called her and I said, "If you could sing with Conway, would you be interested?" She said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I don't think I can explain to you right now, but if you could." She said, "Yes, yeah. I don't understand you, man." I said, "Well, I'll get back to you." So I got in touch with Conway's widow, Dee, and his daughters, and said, "I have an idea, and it's going to be, I know you're going to think it's bizarre, but the idea is I want to be able to get masters and pull words and phrases and things and be able to put together, because we now have the technology."
Yep.
And I said, "This is as much meant to be an experiment in, just because you can, because technology allows it, should you?"
Yeah.
And we did a song called "I Want to Hear a Cheatin' Song." Anita had written this song, and she at a certain point in the song says, "Can you help me, Conway?" And you hear him go, "Yeah." And you hear Conway then come in singing.
Wow.
And it's because it had been able to find words and phrases and put them together in Pro Tools and tune and put it together. Now, this was probably late 90s. So, I mean, it was early on in this whole process, maybe even midnight. I had to go back and look at the date again. But it was early on in what one could do, but we're faced. AI is no different. We must make friends with it and figure out what it is, how to utilize it to the best of our ability from a creative standpoint. The more time that is spent arguing with it and about it, is all of that energy is dissipated that could be used to figure out a way to utilize it successfully. Because I read stuff all the time about this and find as many people on the other side of the fence saying it'll never be able to actually do what it is. You can find examples of where things are happening, but it's not going to replace a certain component of what it means to be effective and a true artist and creatively a part of this process.
Yeah.
Will it have an impact? Absolutely. Napster had one. iTunes had one.
Yeah, for sure.
Because our refusal to come up with a sensible way to deliver music to people, because we just couldn't, in our group ethos and mind, we didn't want to shut down our partners on the street who sold records and CDs and what have you. We don't want to put them out of business, and that's what we'll do if we go run down the road on this. So it took this third party out there to go build it and do it and start working all the stuff and just saying, guys, it's inevitable. I think the same thing is true here. It's inevitable, and the least amount of time possible spent complaining and worrying about it and figuring out how to make friends with it and how to utilize it and how to whoop it at its own game.
It's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere.
You might as well embrace it.
And the
Just
technology,
like you said.
it just gets faster every day.
Yeah.
And the more you try and fight it, it's going to be 30 miles ahead of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And but hey, it can be fun too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have it do stuff for me all the time.
Yeah.
I'd like to do it. I don't ever use any of it, but it's
Do you have it write songs for you?
I've had it write songs before. I had it write one about me one time, and it was very interesting.
Yeah.
It researches really well, and it's a little scary, but it's fine.
It's just going to get better and better.
I'm just
Which
waiting
one are you using?
I'm just the Nova,
Nova.
I believe. Yeah, just waiting for the Terminators now.
Yeah, they're coming.
Yeah, Jim Ed, thank you so much.
Well, before we go,
good.
Jim Ed has to spin the wheel of shame.
What is that? I don't know about this.
It's funny. Everyone asks us about the Wheel of Shame. Nobody really knows what it is.
This is our little gimmicky thing we do at the end of every podcast. So you just got to give it a good old Price is Right spin and
Give it a twirl.
and see where you land. And none of the words on there are going to make sense.
Yeah.
It's all coded.
We'll tell you what it means.
I'm getting very sleepy. I don't know.
Oh no!
What?
You don't want to do that one
Which one is
unless
it?
you want to make David do it.
What's that?
It's Wake the Dead.
Oh.
Oh, come on!
What's
You
the-
have to. I spin.
Which one was that?
I spun it.
Smelling salts.
Okay, I'll do it. I'll take
Do you
Jim
think
Ed's
you want to
place.
do it?
What's that?
You want to smell some smelling salts?
Why?
Because the Wheel of Shame said so.
Well, we can either do this. It'll be the first time we've done it on the podcast, or you can respin and we can see what that lands on.
I'm going to do it.
You want to do it?
Okay.
Oh man.
But I think what was it? As I recall, it was Richard Pryor. He recovered after having running down the street on fire.
Yeah.
And what he worked into his routine was, I'm going to die. I'm going to die.
This is it.
I forgot all about this. Wow.
Okay.
What, does it say anything about my
We
heart?
haven't done this yet, so
my
this is
heart
brand
condition?
new. Yeah. All right, so you just open it, and I think you just smell it.
You just open and smell it?
Yeah.
That's
Does
it?
it say you shouldn't do it with a heart condition?
I don't know.
It doesn't say anything about
I don't
that.
know.
You don't have a heart condition.
I don't. Well, I don't know if I do.
All right,
or
who wants
not.
to do it
Who
first?
goes to the doctor anymore?
I'll
That's
do it
ridiculous.
You're going to do it first?
Yeah, I mean,
All right.
hey, the podcast can go on if I do it first. The star will still be here.
You open it and just probably don't Probably don't get right nose up on it. Maybe just kind of give it a little. You went full.
Well,
tilt.
that expression says it all. Wow.
I'm gonna die.
How you feeling now?
Are you awake?
Oh God.
Oh, we should have filmed this.
Oh.
I totally forgot.
Holy shit.
Are you mad?
Have you ever done it?
No.
Oh, good
This
luck.
is my first time.
Oh, good. You have to do it too.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Oh.
Oh my god.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's like
It's like straight habanero in your nose.
my eyes are watering.
I'm very aware of my left eye and left nostril right now. Well, folks, it's been real.
I'm aware of nothing.
Holy oh my God. Well,
Jim, man, I love
This
that.
would
I
be
love
the-
that you did it.
yeah.
This would be the way to now start the podcast now.
Oh, not a. I might quit. I don't know. Thank you so much for being in here today.
My
Yeah.
pleasure.
Yeah, it's
You're
been an
the man.
honor. It's been an honor to hear
We made
these
Jim Ed
stories.
cry.
We made Jim Ed cry. Don Henley cannot make Jim Ed cry, and we made him cry. Thank you so much for your passion, and your
Yeah.
talent, and
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for touching on
yeah.
so many amazing different
Absolutely.
music and talents over the years. I mean, it's guys like you that have definitely influenced David and myself to be where we are today and making music that inspired us growing up. And you're still doing it, which is awesome.
Hey, well, let me say thank you for continuing to inspire me. You know, to the extent that I played a role in it, thank you. But you guys are continuing to do what you do, and I find it inspirational. And I have been, so far, the luckiest guy I know.
no.
You know,
Well,
it just-
we hope we can make
I've
you
had-
proud.
You do each and every day.
Colt, tell them what they can do for us.
Yes. You need to follow us on socials,
Follow.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook,
All of them.
and then rate the podcast, like it, subscribe. We're available on all streaming platforms.
Yeah. Well,
All right. Well, thanks again, Jim Ed.
Yeah. Thank
You're
you,
awesome.
brother.
You're the man.
We'll see y'all next time.
Aloha.
Mahalo.